Welcome back to the channel. Today, I want to talk about wide receivers. Terry McLaurin just got paid, A.J. Brown got a new contract, and lots of other wide receivers have been stacking their cash this offseason. Will the same thing happen for DK Metcalf and Deebo Samuel? Let's find out. Like and subscribe, and let's get into it. This offseason has been a monumental one for the wide receiver position. I believe it all started when Kirk signed his deal with the Jaguars. He's never reached 1,000 yards, averages 4 touchdowns per season, and was the third best wide receiver on his team last season. I'm not hating on the guy, I'm just stating facts. He's a talented individual, but when he gets to sign a contract worth up to $84 million with a $20 million signing bonus, there's going to be some backlash and a trickle-down effect. Kirk positioned himself as a top 15 wide receiver in average salary prior to AJ and Terry's new contracts. Now, I know that every single year there are going to be bigger and bigger contracts as the salary cap increases, but middle-of-the-pack positional players shouldn't be top 15 in salary, especially at wide receiver, where every team starts 3 at the position. Good for him, though. Make your money, young man. Moving on to A.J. Brown. Brown is a different story from Kirk. He was clearly the best wide receiver on his team, had a stellar 16.3 yards per catch, and averaged nearly 10 touchdowns per season. He did all of this on a team that would rather run than throw, with a quarterback who many would argue isn't in the top half of the league. He gets traded, and the Eagles pay the man what they think he's worth. Now making $25 million per year, good enough for 5th highest paid in the league. This set the tone for Terry McLaurin's negotiations. What's different between Terry and AJ is that Terry was a 3rd-round pick and hasn't been making much money at all to this point comparatively. So when he negotiated, I'm sure that was in his mind. He was able to secure a 3-year extension with a $28 million signing bonus, the largest ever for a wide receiver, at least until the next contract gets signed, but also worth $23 million per year average salary. McLaurin ranks 15th all-time in receptions by a wide receiver through their first 3 seasons. He did this with 8 different quarterbacks, and the biggest name being Alex Smith after his injury. The majority of his receptions came from Taylor Heinicke and Kyle Allen. Washington knows if they get him a quarterback and some help on the outside that they've got something special. That brings us to the other 2 receivers who are looking to get paid this offseason, Deebo and DK. While they are both waiting for a payday, their offseasons both individually and on their teams have looked pretty different. Let's start with Deebo. Deebo Samuel started his career with 2 seasons that were cut short due to injury. His stats were unimpressive due to this fact, and people worried that this was going to be what he is. Until last season. Deebo played in 16 of 17 games, accumulated 1,400 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns through the air, but also ran for 365 yards and an additional 8 touchdowns. He was used everywhere in the 49ers offense, so he's clearly shown his value to this franchise and wants to be paid for it. However, he's now gone on the record stating that he wants to strictly play wide receiver and not have a hybrid role where he's taking carries out of the backfield. I understand why he's saying this, as running backs are known for having the hardest physical toll on their bodies in the offensive side of the ball. With Samuel's recent history of injury, it makes sense that he wants to protect himself and his long-term future in the league. But does this sentiment lower his value to the 49ers or other potential teams that would seek to acquire him in a trade? Deebo did attend mandatory minicamp for San Francisco, but has not publicly retracted his trade request, so it's still up in the air. It will likely get figured out one way or the other before training camp. DK's situation is different. From the beginning, he's been a big-time target. He's had over 900 receiving yards in each of his first 3 seasons, with a 1,300-yard breakout in 2020. He also is averaging nearly 10 touchdowns per season. He hasn't missed any games either. DK is likely waiting until Deebo signs so that he can ensure he's the highest-paid wide receiver from the 2019 draft class, and in my opinion, he's earned that. But his team situation is far different from Deebo's. His all-pro quarterback was traded away, and it feels like the Seahawks are in a rebuild. And while he hasn't requested a trade publicly, he did skip mandatory minicamp, so he's not just going to play on his final year of his current contract without some resolution. To me, while Deebo has requested a trade, and perhaps walked it back a little bit, I think it's far more likely that DK gets traded as part of the Seahawks rebuild, especially if they can't acquire someone like Baker Mayfield or Jimmy G to bolster their quarterback situation. And while that would be fun, and would make for good content, I think at the end of the day, both guys get new contracts before the season starts, and we just keep rolling. Probably in the $23 to $25 million per year range for Deebo, and that $26 million number makes sense for DK, so it can be $1 million higher than A.J. Brown. Thanks so much for watching, and if you made it this far, I really hope you'll consider liking the video and subscribing. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers so I can give away an NFL jersey to one lucky subscriber. Thanks so much, and I'll see y'all next time.